Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to this special MadFest and Agillic webcast on fact-checking personalisation. I'm Dan Brain, I'm co-founder and content director at MadFest. We've got a brilliant lineup of speakers today who will be sharing their insights and debating the pluses and pitfalls of different personalisation approaches. Of course, personalisation has been a buzzword in the industry for a little while now, but hopefully our panel of practitioners will leave you with clarity on lots of the important issues, things like balancing scale and relevance, and also how to execute campaigns across paid and owned media. We'll also be looking at the dangers of hyper-personalisation. As is the MadFest tradition, we are recording this webcast live. But don't worry, everyone's on mute. We don't want a viral repeat of last week's handful of parish council Zoom meet. We'll also be making this webcast available on demand, so you can dip back into the content at your own convenience. We'll try to keep things as interactive as possible, so do use the Q&A function to ask those burning questions. We'll also be putting a poll live shortly. It's very much the MadFest tradition, so we can very much get your ideas and your questions about how you see personalisation evolving and the opportunities and challenges it presents. So enjoy the webcast, and without further ado, I'd like to hand you over to Rasmus Houlind, who's Chief Experience Officer at Agillic. Rasmus will introduce today's speakers and also share some insights to set the scene of personalisation in 2021. Over to you, Rasmus.
Thank you very much, Dan. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Just hide my webcam here, so I don't have to look at myself. Not really the point, is it? Okay, so today we're going to talk about hyper-personalization and fact-checking whether it's a good idea, or I think on a more granular level, when it is and when it isn't. So first, one of my favorite topics, just a bit about me, and I'm just kidding. I'm Chief Experience Officer at the software company Agillic. We're a Copenhagen-based MarTech company. Me personally, I'm also the author of the omnichannel book, Make It All About Me, that you see here. It recently came out in Chinese. So if you're fed up with reading stuff in English, you can always check out the Chinese version out of Taiwan. I have a professional history from digital agencies, mainly here out of Copenhagen, and I'm the networking type. So if you want to connect or anything, I just need to check out a sound replacement for your MarTech stack. Well, actually, it could be the case. Please reach out. I think that's it from the product placement part of today's presentation. So we have a pretty strong panel today, I should say. You already met Dan. With us also here on the line, we have Marie Goddard, Customer Marketing Director from FT.com. We have the Head of CX from Miinto Group, Paloma Truong. And we have Zacchary Couldrick, Managing Director of a B2B company, Aexus, in the UK. So with this, so I'll give these people a chance to introduce themselves in a bit more detail later on. But without any further ado, we'll head straight into the topic of today. So the agenda here, so we have some idea of where we're going. First of all, we'll spend not too much time, but just briefly visit the promise of a hyper-personalization. Then we'll dive more into what you could refer to as reality. And I know that reality has been a bit distorted recently, last year or so. But let's look at the reality for marketers. How can we actually increase relevance? How do we balance that in terms of not getting as heavy a penalty in terms of scale when we do this? So key dilemmas that we'll be touching upon, and where we'll be using our panelists in a very much dialogue fashion. We'll be discussing how you can balance reach, balance scale with relevance, how you can balance campaigns with lifecycle communications. How do you orchestrate marketing effectively across channels, and here especially paid versus owned channels. So and to make this a bit more fluid, a bit more live, and getting the practitioners really into the discussions of the theoretical parts as well, we decided to sort of mix the panel discussion in with the dilemmas as we go through those. All right, so I think without any further ado, let's dive into this. So first of all, the promise here. I think it's, I mean, as a marketer, you're probably attending a lot of, well, it used to be physical conferences, and now it's probably more digital conferences. And as much as I Actually, I enjoy doing that, especially the physical ones, where you meet up in person with all the buzz and all the hype. I must also say I could get the Monday morning blues. So when you get back to your desktop after having attended an event, you go back to your desktop, you sit in front of your computer, and you realize, well, actually the things that were promised at the event, the beautiful case studies and the stories about how people achieved 6x or even higher on their conversion rates, on their transaction rates. That often seems to sort of be a bit overpromised, and you find out, well, maybe I am part of the 70% of brands who fail to use these, but why is it that I fail? What is it that I wasn't told? Why is it that we're in this position where suddenly, am I stupid since I can't seem to reap the huge benefits out of whatever was promised on stage? And I think this is an experience that a lot of people can relate to. So let's have a look a bit more under the hood and see how does reality really look when we take seasoned practitioners from different industries and have them relate to how this resonates with their worldview and their daily day-to-day work. All right, so let's dive into the real life challenge of actually not being part of these 70% who somehow missed out how we can use these super obvious ways of converting 6 times better. So I'll bring to you 3 hypotheses roasted by real life marketers. So I hope you enjoy this. So first of all, and I think this is probably one of the most essential dilemmas of working within marketing today, and that this will be how to balance scale with relevance. Because as it is, we all know that, or we've all pretty much seen these examples from the conferences where people are working with, apologies. Somehow I seem to lost my cursor. There it was. We somehow seem to all know these examples of doing triggered and personalized communication, where you can indeed achieve these 6x in terms of a conversion rate or transactional rate or whatnot. So these are all very good, but the story that they don't tell you is that you can only achieve this for a fairly small proportion of your customer database. So even though there may be a 6x, when it amounts to money, well, it doesn't necessarily come up as a big figure on the budget, and not necessarily something that you get rewarded for once you start going out of marketing circles. Because in the other end, when you are going for the scale, well, you're going on the broad media, you're going on television, you can indeed get an incredibly high scale in terms of eyeballs and people looking at this. So in reality, with a limited amount of resources, where do you put your money? So you have these people, this amount of people, this amount of money. Where should you put where should you place your bet? Where should you focus your efforts here on this scale from high scale, low relevance to high relevance, low scale? Where should you put your money? And I think this is probably not there's not a simple answer to this, but it's often a dilemma. I think it's pretty clear that you can't be hyper relevant to everybody all the time. So at least for some, does that mean you shouldn't communicate? No, it shouldn't, because you also have your brand messages, you have your brand identity that you want to convey, that you want to put in front of a public that you don't necessarily know particularly well yet. So actually, first person here to help us dive into reality here, that will be Zacchary Couldrick. Zacchary, welcome here on the webinar. Would you care to say a few words about yourself and Aexus and your role here?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Rasmus. So we're a B2B sales company, and we help more than 150 innovative tech companies from across the globe to be successful, providing expert business development, sales, and inbound and outbound marketing services to tech companies in the B2B space. So that's a little bit about us. I'm the regional managing director for UK and Ireland. And we have a team spread out across the whole of Europe and the US. I guess me being on the panel is a little different to many of the other guys on the panel. I come at this from a B2B angle, although we have exactly the same challenges in terms of how do we remain relevant and also reach out to enough people to achieve the necessary results. What I wanted to do is give a couple of examples and something we're probably all aware of on this panel and also in the audience is the amount of noise now in the LinkedIn inbox. So
Yeah,
I wanted to give a really good, at least. I can imagine. So I wanted to give a really good example and show how great research and hyper-personalization can help you stand out. And this is from a conversation with a CISO at a large UK bank. We did a bit of research on his profile. It was clear he was from Wales, and then he also had a few words that we didn't recognise on his profile, such as disgu, which is learning in Welsh. So we wanted to reach out and acknowledge that affinity with the Welsh language, and actually it worked. We managed to have a meeting with him, and we're now looking at a project together for one of our cybersecurity clients. Probably skip slide on to the next one. And the issue is, though, hyper-personalized LinkedIn outreach, when done right, is super effective, and it can give us conversion rates to first meetings of 8 to 10%, which is great when you spend 10-15 minutes writing a message, and 1 in 10 times you get into a meeting with a client or prospect. The problem is it's difficult to do well, and not every profile has got super rich information you can use to personalize. So more often than not, we get it wrong, and we're not looking at 8 to 10% conversion rates. So we find segmented email campaigns, kind of going along that campaign of high relevance, hyper personalization versus scale, are often more effective when we measure a kind of cost per book meeting, which is one of the key metrics in our business.
Makes sense.
Additionally, I wanted to share an example of a not so good one, and kind of explain why. I believe the hypothesis here with this LinkedIn outreach was I have a business interest where I'm a director.
This is actually a LinkedIn inbox campaign that you received. Am I right?
This is one I received, yeah. And I'm not saying we're no saints. We get things wrong all the time, and I think part of our job is to push boundaries and try and get people engaged. And definitely, we've got a lot of things wrong over the time. But I quickly pulled this one up because I have a business interest in a telecoms company. We're not in the IoT space at all, but I think the hypothesis here is that directors in telecoms companies would be interested in IoT development services. So I received a series of messages. I more or less always accept everyone on LinkedIn. I'm one of those people. Also curious to see how people pitch you as well, because that's part of what we do every day. It's good learning and experience.
Makes sense.
And maybe generic automated approaches will work, but the problem is with LinkedIn, your inbox, it's remembered. So when you want to go back to someone with something more specific, they will still be able to see that conversation history. And what frustrated me about this one as a keen business developer is when I said not interested, they didn't ask why. Because with marketing, any kind of outreach, you want to know where you went wrong. And if you get that kind of feedback, not interested, or you're getting lots of unsubscribes to a particular campaign, if we look at small mass marketing, you really want to know why that happened, because obviously we don't set out to get that answer. So that was kind of just to warm us up with some B2B examples before we get onto the really good stuff from my
That's great. So what's your conclusion? What's your conclusion, Zach? So if you had like only one bag of money, where would you put it on this axis from high scale to high relevance? Where would you put it?
I think I'd hate to just have one bag of money. I like to split my bets, and I think that's most marketers.
Let's bet your bid. I like that.
Yeah. And I think we would go a percentage, slightly smaller percentage, highly triggered and personalized, looking at research based, and then probably maybe 70%, 30%, 70% would be segmented mass marketing messages, because the worst thing you do is not do anything. And I think you hinted at that at the beginning. Yeah.
So I think an important point here, we aren't in any way trying to belittle the power of mass marketing or going really, really broad. You just need to know where to place each of your small bags of money, which is also what I'm hearing you say. Let's have a look at how this could look from a B2C angle. So I'd like to introduce Paloma Truong, who is the head of CX at Miinto Group. Welcome on the webinar, Paloma. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and Miinto as a business, please?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Rasmus. Very happy to be here. I'm Paloma Truong. I'm head of customer experience at Miinto. So for those who don't know us yet, we are an online fashion marketplace selling products from independent boutiques across Europe. We're currently operating in 13 markets, and we're growing at a pretty fast pace. So both in terms of geography, but also in terms of assortment. So we basically have more than 500,000 products on our platforms. So you can imagine that personalization is really part of our key strategy components. So I would like to start with an example where we basically looked at our browsing experience. Because nowadays, I mean, I think our audience probably knows that personalization of the on-site experience has become really a must in online retail, and probably even more when you are a marketplace like us, given the size of our assortments. And so we use a pretty advanced personalization tool. And we've been, playing around quite a bit with the level of personalization that we want to offer to our users. And to do that, we basically ran a couple of A/B tests where we measured which share of the assortment should be personalized to the customer's own preferences. And so the first A/B test we run was one where we switched, we increased the share personalization from 25% to 50%. So meaning that 50% of the products would be personalized to the users. And as you can see, it already brought a pretty solid increase of the revenue per visit, like 5%. So we were actually already very happy to see that was such a significant uplift. But we still try as a way to think, okay, can we go even further and go all the way towards hyper personalization of the browsing experience? And I must say, I was a bit
100%. All the products I would look at as a consumer, those would be like ranked personally for me. Is that it?
Yes, I mean 100% is really a lot. I haven't tried 100% because of the learnings from the last test. So the second test that we run, where we started with 50% as a default, and then we went to 60, 65, and 70. And as you can see, the 65% of the assortment personalized was the level of the shared assortment that brought up the highest uplift in terms of revenue per visit, and very significant actually. And as soon as we went to 70, which is really a fine line, we were actually seeing a decrease in performance. Which was very surprising, and I was really not expecting that, to be honest. Like so
did you try to pull it even further up, or did you say, well, we're fine, 70%, let's just go back to 65? Did you test with 75 or 80% or?
We did test 75 actually. So, and weirdly enough, in some markets it performed okay, and in other markets it didn't perform at all. But altogether, the level that seems to be the most relevant was 65%, and then we adjust depending on the markets and so on, of course.
Okay.
Yes,
that makes sense.
But yeah, I think it really showed that there is a very fine line between relevance to the users and being invasive, and it is very much about finding that sweet spot, because you want to provide a personalized experience, but at the same time you want your customers to be able to to discover more of your assortments instead of keep seeing the same old products over and over again. So it is very much
breaking out of the echo chamber as well.
Exactly. Yeah, it is very much about that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I think Marie from FT can also relate to this thing. Also wanting to make sure that people know that there are other stuff that they can be interested on the site. I mean, whether it be other article categories or whether it be other parts of the assortment. So I think that makes perfect sense. So I think, Paloma, this is an example of where you're using technology to scale. I think you can say, when looking at a website such as a marketplace website such as yours, you can almost say that the content here, I mean, the content is the products basically. So this means that it isn't necessarily content heavy doing this kind of personalization for you. Basically, you have a lever that you can either pull further to the right or further to the left, and it decides how large a share of your assortment that you are personalizing to each individual customer. Do you have an example where it's a bit more content heavy, or where it isn't quite as obvious or as easy to to do the experimentation.
Yes, absolutely. We've been actually pretty far in terms of email automation campaigns. So basically, we have a lot of automated flows that are running to target our customers with relevant and personalized content. But I would say that we've also maybe been a little bit too far in the way of hyper-targeting and hyper-personalization. So this is on the left side, you can see an example of one of our email automation campaigns, which it is about a popular Scandinavian brand. So you might not know it. It's called Aexus, but it's a Danish brand that is very popular in Denmark. So this is a campaign that we run in the Danish markets. And we basically wanted to create some brand-specific content that we could use to target to send to our CRM base that had shown an interest in that specific brand, like through their browsing history or through their purchasing history or something. And we created a bunch of these brand-specific emails, and as you can see, I think they look pretty nice. They have nice pictures, some text about the brand, also some products and so on. But we actually quickly realized after setting them up that the performance was okay, but the reach was tiny. And we were not really able to expand that reach that much, or at least not really in a very smart way. So that's when we decided to take another approach and to basically use dynamic content. So basically automated emails with dynamic fields based on the preferred brands that we had identified in our data set for the customer. And then with basically a brand name appearing dynamically in the copy and some product recommendations that would be also dynamic based on the brand that was defined by our datasets. And so you can see that this email is a little bit less sexy. I mean, in my point of view, at least, like maybe a little bit less inspiring. But looking at the data, we could actually see that the performance was not much lower or much worse. And in terms of reach, it was like massively more scalable.
So this is like 35 times more people you're reaching or something in that area, it seems.
Pretty much, exactly. And this is a structure that we can use basically to target all our customers that we had data about.
On
so
any
way
brand.
more scalable. On any brand, yes.
On any brand. Okay, so by watering down the message a bit, make it slightly less hyper-personalized, you're actually able to count more money coming in from this this automated flow.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's a super interesting case here. So if we refer that back to sort of this this axis of going from high scale to high relevance, I think this is an example of actually a life cycle flow, because this was somebody who'd been all the customers who'd been looking at a particular category. They would then receive sort of a life cycle flow relating to that particular browsing interest they had. I think that makes sense, right, Paloma?
I agree. Yeah, totally. It is completely a life cycle flow, retargeting customers based on their interaction with their behavior, basically.
And I know that you've been actually spending quite a lot of time setting up a lot of life cycle flows, even though you could argue that you are a transactionally based business, and if people haven't shopped with you, they might shop somewhere else. You're still going very much at this from a life cycle angle. And we'll get a bit back to that once we start concluding on today's webinars. So I think to look at this from a center even more on the life cycle flows, I think it's worth considering how business looks like if you're in a business where actually you have a subscription, where it's it's more natural to think about things from a life cycle perspective. And this brings us on to the next actually topic of today, because at least with the companies that I've been involved with and where I've been working with omnichannel marketing, I've seen that once you really start working with this axis from high scale to high relevance, it sort of breaks in the middle, and this is actually exactly where you distinguish between everything that's more or less belonging to the yearly cycle in terms of relying on the yearly cycle and the 4 seasons to bring some kind of relevance to the end customers, as opposed to looking more at the customer life cycle, and that be the life cycle flows. And I see for many marketers this is a big distinction between these two ways of working. Often I've seen actually different teams working with either or. So we have some working with some part of the marketing team, and one part of the marketing is working with doing the campaigns that follow the yearly cycle. You have another team who's working strictly or focused on the customer life cycle, making sure you do things that are particular from a timing perspective, relevant for the end customers. So, but again, how do you balance if you have one bag of money? I know this isn't necessarily the case. I like the fact that you have more bags of money to place. But how do you balance this within one marketing department? And to help us get closer to this, I'd like to invite into the panel here Marie Goddard, Customer Marketing Director from FT.com. Welcome, Marie. Could you tell us a bit about yourself and how you're working with this at the FT.com?
Sure, thanks Rasmus. It's nice to be here this afternoon. So just a little bit of background about the FT for anyone that's not familiar with us. We're a global news publisher with just under 1.1 million paying subscribers across the globe. Our audience is divided into the B2C side of the business, which is where me and my team work, and we have a B2B side of the business. The B2C side represents about 27% of our total customer base. We've got two core products. I hope if you know us that you'll be familiar with our pink newspaper, but we also have our digital FT.com offering, and we've got about 900,000 of our total global audience who are digital subscribers. We are a subscription business, as you mentioned up front, Rasmus, and we have three tiers of product for our subscribers. In 2020, we saw our revenues grow by about 18% in the B2C part of the business. And like many publishers,
impressive.
Whilst advertising's still a really important revenue driver for us, actually for a few years now, our subscription revenues have overtaken advertising revenues. So being able to manage that customer life cycle of a subscriber from acquisition all the way through to engaging them, retaining them and winning them back is a really important part of what we do to help support that side of the business revenues coming in. So quite critical to use personalisation to do that, given the broad reach of our audience and their interests around the globe.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you very much for that little intro. So if we go back to the this act of balancing the campaigns with the lifecycle marketing, the marketers that I've come to know over the years, they seem to be mostly familiar or more familiar with the left side of the equation here. So the yearly cycle, and I think you could almost argue that marketers have been doing the yearly campaigns ever since Eve was selling apples in the Garden of Eden. That was a fall campaign for those interested, by the way. And I think this is what mostly marketers have been accustomed to. And actually, what I found is that one of the reasons that people really don't sort of get into doing the customer lifecycle marketing is due to the fact that they're a bit short of ideas and they aren't that familiar with working with this, and they can easily spend up all their time on the customer lifecycle campaigns. So what we've done here at Agillic is that we try to sort of conceptualize the you can say the most typical moments of truth, for instance, for a subscription company, which would be something related to this. How does this resonate with your reality, Marie?
It's a really close representation of what we're focused on in our part of the business. I think you're absolutely right. That kind of annual campaign-based activity is still really important to us and to many publishers. You know, we are news agenda driven. We have to respond to what's happening in the news agenda, so we've got to be able to respond to that, to both acquire and engage our existing subscribers. And you know, it's an important part of what we do, but in order to manage the subscription aspect of that, so keeping our customers and renewing them so they continue to pay, we do have to really focus on kind of the key moments in their life cycle. And for us as a business, in our customer marketing department, we've identified probably the 4 or 5 really most important moments of this life cycle where we have really honed in to drive the personalisation, to drive the business outcomes that we want. I think if you tackled all of this at one go, it could feel really daunting, but it's about understanding those really important moments where you could have the most impact for the customer to drive those business targets. So I've got a couple of examples to share with you along that journey.
So what I'm hearing here is that you're also considering scale here. So even though you're tackling this from a customer lifecycle point of view, you're also, for each of these moments of truth, thinking, okay, where will I have the most scale, the highest scale, and the most impact?
Absolutely. So where can we put the effort
Great.
to drive the most return back for the business? Absolutely.
So you brought us some examples. I'm keen to learn more about that. Be happy to hear about the first one.
Thanks. Both Zacchary and Paloma kindly shared both their great examples, but also a couple of examples where it might not have panned out so well. And I thought I'm going to take the opposite approach and start with something that didn't pan out so well for us. So the conversion part of our journey, so for taking a reader who doesn't have a subscription with us and converting them to a paid subscriber is actually a really important part of that life cycle journey for us. We'd already been experimenting in the space of personalized landing pages for the offers, so reflecting your content interest as a reason to purchase to drive you to take a subscription, and that had been pretty successful for us as a business. We were seeing between 17 and 22% uplift on conversion rates, and it was driving a really good.
If I was particularly interested in Brexit, for instance, I would receive sort of a Brexit headline here on the subscription page.
That's spot on. So really helped drive up some conversion rates, and with it increased our average LTV for every acquisition by about £90, which is a pretty good impact for just tailoring the message on site.
Yes.
And we got excited and we thought, okay, so we can we can have a bit of an impact with personalization here. How far can we take it? And actually we wanted to see, could we really push the dial on driving that LTV acquisition by tailoring the offers that we presented to you? So not only reflecting our proposition in light of your interests, but what would happen if we tailored the offers you could see? So what we have been doing is presenting the 4 different propositions that we have for you. You've got a $1 trial, our standard and our premium subscription, all the way through to our B2B or a print subscription. And we thought if we could identify what offer you'd be most likely to take and tailor our pages to that, let's present that to the customer. Now, at this point of the journey, we don't know too much about the customer. We don't have a lot of data about them because they haven't been with us that long, or they might have only visited the sites a few times. So we worked with our data science team to develop a model that we would then use to predict what your offer take up would be. And we moved to, as you can see in the top right of that, we moved to presenting a page that removed the trial. We wanted to identify people that didn't need to take a trial, and we could get them straight into a full paying subscription. And actually, as a result of doing that, after about 6 weeks of testing, it didn't have the effect we wanted. We saw about a 4% decline on the conversion rates, and that was pre-conversion rates that we'd seen before we'd done the personalization of the on-site pages. We also saw.
Okay, so that's a bit disappointing. What was it as sort of considered a big failure, or how did you tackle this? Because obviously a lot of effort didn't result in any uplift in this case. But does that mean it was wasted, or how do you see that?
No, I think our biggest learning, and I think it is a really important learning for the business, things can go wrong, but they still provide you with a learning platform. The one thing we absolutely learn is that by changing offers and messages on our sign up pages, we can absolutely influence our conversion rates. It's just they might not always turn out the way that you want them to. So that's a really good learning. And that we are planning so much more testing in this space. Now that we know we can have that impact, there's so much more personalization that we can start to test in this space to help drive more of that LTV and conversion rate uplift. The other learning for us is the model's not wasted. We're testing that model to have more relevance, maybe when we know a bit more about the customer. So slightly later in their life cycle. Probably we did not know enough about the customer at this point, and we were predicting too much.
So you're getting false positive. Maybe.
False positives, absolutely. But it's, yes, it fails on a commercial level, but actually it's a massive learning opportunity and a platform for more tests for us in the future.
So you either win or learn.
Win or learn,
exactly. That's the right approach. It sounds like you're already into sort of the process of experimenting and learning and improving. I think that's if there's a key takeaway that we didn't plan. I think this might be it. So you mentioned these other opportunities, other places in the customer lifecycle where you set in with automated communication. So I'm dying to hear more about those. And I know we have a bit of that in the bag for us.
Absolutely. So right at the other end of the customer life cycle, as a subscription business, I'm sure we're all subscribers to different entertainment packages, etc. within our lives,
Oh, yes.
the renewal part of our life cycle is a really important moment of truth for our customers and for our business. We get about 80% of all of our cancellation requests at the point at which we have to send the renewal notice, and it's not a surprise. So we've been on a bit of a journey with this in terms of improving it, and it started in 2017, where we launched an annual campaign. So Rasmus, to your earlier point about balancing annual campaigns with life cycle, we actually started this journey with an annual campaign that targeted our active subscribers in the month of December,
So
and
just before New Year, yeah.
Just before the new year, and just shared with them everything they'd done in that year. We looked at the kind of articles.
Reminds me of some company, music company.
We might have been inspired by our colleagues in other subscription businesses by that. Yeah. Absolutely. But we played back the content they'd read, their favourite journalist, what device they tended to use. And it did really well. We ran that in for 2 years. We could see that we were getting a 1% retention improvement. This wasn't specifically aimed at retaining customers, but it was driving a retention. And we increased our lifetime value by about £150,000 a year. But this is another example of where we got excited.
Taking into account as
that's
well,
worth taking into account.
Yeah, that's real money.
That is real money. And we got excited again. Yep, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. The doors started to open here. So we started to think, how could we apply that learning to that moment of risk in the customer life cycle? It's great that it works in December, but what if we made it more relevant to the customer rather than more relevant to the calendar year? So our next iteration of this was to start sending this to our customers just before we sent them their renewal notice. Hypothesis here was, if we could remind them of the value of their subscription, by the time we send them their renewal notice, which also for many customers includes a price rise, we might help them in their repurchase decision. We started that in 2019, so after 2 years of our annual campaign, and we had some really sterling results that we are really excited about. We saw a 4% improvement in cancellations. That is money on the bottom line of about just over 1 million lifetime value per year for the business. So that's another exciting point. We didn't stop there. I think you get the sense of what we're like at the FT.
Yeah,
we kept pushing.
I kind of get the sense. Yeah, that's exciting me.
Yeah. We also realised
this was an email, right? This is an email.
This is an email. So that's
up as a subscriber. Just at sort of my mental moment of truth. Am I going to continue with this? So probing me with the right content before I actually get to the decision point.
Absolutely. The problem is, with our email permission reach, we can't get to all of our subscribers. And with a 40% open rate, we can't always get everybody to see that message. So we took the campaign in August of last year, we took the campaign online, and we placed a similar approach within the cancellation journey for our customers. So if the customer hadn't received the email or still decided to cancel at renewal, we went into the online journey. If you go into the online journey, we'll ask them why they want to leave. We will play a page of a FOMO page, reasons why you should stay, what you're going to miss. And we would also make them a personalised save offer to prevent that cancellation.
Okay. So this is the offer here down the bottom right corner.
Yep. Now that offer is purely based on the slide you can see above, whether you say it's too expensive or you don't read enough. So it's personalised to the customer response.
So there's a link here, just depending on.
Absolutely.
So just out of curiosity, if I say I wasn't reading enough, how would the offer play out then down here?
We would take you down to a lower tiered product, so a lighter access product. If you thought it's too expensive, we would offer you a price-based offer to help you save some money. That might come with a lower price.
So this is beginning to smell a bit like omnichannel, or at least cross-channel this instance, and the effects of this addition to the lifecycle flow.
I'd say a little bit better than we'd achieved already. So as a result, we're on track to deliver 1.6 million incremental LTV in a 12-month period. We launched this in August, so we haven't gone through our full year, but we are on track looking at the current performance to deliver 1.6 million for the business. And we're looking at where else we can take this. Yeah, and I think that truly is about opening up different channels for this as well. We wouldn't have been able to reach.
I suppose this will work out once you're asking for more budget or extra headcounts or whatever. Bring these kind of results to the table will be providing you with some leverage. I surely hope so. Anyway.
Absolutely, yeah.
Fantastic. So this begins to smell like the journey from like single channel to multi-channel, cross-channel, omni-channel, which actually leads me on. Thank you so much for sharing, Marie. Insanely interesting here. I'd like to ask you further because sort of the last dilemma, the last topic that we had on the agenda to discuss today was actually the channel prioritization issue here, or dilemma, or challenge, name it what you like. So how do you balance how do you sort of orchestrate your communication? As you said, you can only reach around 40% of your customers through email. I suppose you're trying to increase that figure. Nonetheless, customers will always have different preferences when it comes to the channels that they prefer to be contacted on. And of course, obviously, the price per contact will differ between these channels. So, and I think probably the biggest distinction here is probably between paid and owned media. So you have your owned channels here to the right, you have your paid channels here to the left. And as we all know, earned media has somewhat turned into paid media. So actually, the dilemma here, I think this is probably the biggest chasm to cross between paid media and owned media. And what I see, at least, is you may have someone who's chief commercial here on top. That could be your boss, as I understand it. But then you probably have someone who's working a bit more with customer acquisition. So a digital marketing manager, head of acquisition, a title and the style of that, knowing that they could probably get lower customer acquisition cost if they only had fresh and fine-grained first-party data available for their paid media purchases. But then on the other hand, they'd need the help from the CRM manager or the retention manager or the customer marketing manager. Well, and I think it's fair to say that you might be a bit hesitant to pull out and clean lists for the digital marketing manager to better reach their targets. It won't necessarily help you retain customers better. On the other hand, having a bit of advertising budget as a CRM manager or head of CRM could prove useful for actually boosting a customer lifetime value. But then again, on the other side of the fence, why would a digital marketing manager spend their budget to run ads on their tools for existing customers? Is this something that resonates with how you're organized within the FT,
Absolutely. So we're definitely organised in this way. My team sits on the right of your slides, focused on retention, and we work alongside an acquisition team whose primary channel is the paid media side of the business, side of acquisition. I think what's interesting for us and where we are, and I'm sure for many others in the subscription business and Zacchary and Paloma, is we know that paid media can play a really important role for the job that we want to do in engaging and retaining our customers, particularly at certain points in their life cycle. So for example, if one of our subscribers is not on site and they're not reading our emails, I do need to use paid media to reach them because they'll be looking for their news sources elsewhere. So it's an important tool in our armour, and we try to tackle that head on. We do have budget put aside within my team to invest in paid media predominantly at the moment.
So check that.
And we tick. We also have someone in our team who's focused on using paid media to support our campaign objectives. So we have skilled the team up to do that. Another tick in, so we're not actually competing to get our acquisition colleagues to support us against our objectives. I guess where we could probably think about working is more alignment. There's still duplication of effort. So we might all be focused on maybe a specific news agenda item or a specific cohort from an acquisition and retention perspective, but we're operating in silos. So as we further develop this, we need to get some more alignment between the teams, because that is going to allow us the freedom and less effort for us to get even more targeted in those spaces. So I've got to help the team reduce
what's standing in the way of aligning your media spend closer to the customer lifecycle? What are sort of the main obstacles?
I guess acquisition tend to plan more in that annual campaign burst of activity, whereas we're trying to overlay the life cycle side of things. So it's just finding the right way to have that matrix, if you like, of how things work. So it's an operational piece that we just need to work on. But as you know, at the start of every journey,
integration part, is that an issue here? So I know many a marketer or a CRM manager who's pulling out lists and it's lying on their desktop in an Excel spreadsheet, and they're throwing that over the fence, or even sending it through email to their peers in the paid media department, and then they need to upload and stuff. And often the result is that it simply doesn't happen because it's not integrated well enough.
Yeah. So we need to start thinking about how we can combine objectives, as well as look at where we have those unique opportunities where we need to work together, but in sync, if that makes sense. Okay.
Well, thank you very much for sharing, Marie. Insanely interesting examples here that you gave, and pretty impressive uplifts that you managed to do as well. I think this shows pretty much the dilemma of how you should always try and balance reach with relevance. So we're reaching a point where we are to start concluding on the questions that we were discussing today. So the conclusion here could be, how do you balance scale with relevance? What I'm hearing here is that first of all, we're not trying to belittle in any way that you should be doing campaigns. You agree, dear panelists? We're still doing campaigns, right? Yeah. So still go broad. Still make the one-size-fits campaigns. You can't be super relevant to everybody all the time. But as I learned from you, Paloma, if technology makes it possible to scale, either by watering down the message a bit or by having a technology that actually can do the sorting for you, then of course do the segmentation whenever possible. That's what I heard from you. And then the other example with the lifecycle flow, well, don't necessarily go all the way to the right at first. Don't start your personalization efforts there. So remember that you are already becoming pretty relevant by just tapping into the customer lifecycle as opposed to the yearly lifecycle. And that alone will bring you increased access, or in terms of response rates and conversion rates. So that's what I heard. One part. I think another lesson that I learned actually by talking to people from your company, Paloma, was something about. I mean, does this happen overnight? How early can I get on with building a lot of volume on the customer lifecycle part? I hope this is something that you've seen before.
Yes, I would say it takes time. It's not something that we can build from one day to the other. We've been working on building some lifecycle based campaigns to reactivate our customers, but over a long period of time, and you have to start small and then build up from there. But for us, it's been extremely rewarding. Like we actually started after a long period of time where we're seeing some stagnating and even declining customer lifetime value, as you can see on the left side of the graph. And the kickoff is when we started building up this lifecycle based campaigns. So as you can see, it helped quite a bit. Of course, it's not the only reason, but it is definitely one of the main drivers of our customer lifecycle growth.
Yeah, who wouldn't want a 31% increase in customer lifetime value? I think that's pretty amazing.
It's interesting.
Going back to this, yeah, really interesting graph. But you need the patience here. That's what I'm hearing from you, Paloma. I mean, so if you're expecting the 31% uplift within a quarter, I mean, it's not likely that it's going to happen anytime soon, but only once you've actually automated a lot of these life cycle flows for the customers. But then again, once it's up and running, it's a matter of optimizing and just making sure that it keeps running. We already had the answer from you, Marie, to this. I think the result that you were showing about first of all making things personalized in a scalable way. And at the right timing in terms of the customer life cycle. So just before me as a subscriber having to make up my mind whether I want to continue with this, I think that was extremely interesting, the amount of money that you were able to move doing that. And then by going omnichannel, sort of the second step, was it the third? I think it was actually a third step, extra results from that. So I think that's the conclusion here. So you should balance it out. Be patient with the customer lifecycle flows. Make sure that you do personalization where it's scalable. Don't necessarily go too far to the right in terms of personalizing, hyper-personalizing, but make sure you count the money and not only the increase in conversion rates. So thank you very much, Zacchary. Thank you very much, Paloma. Thank you very much, Marie, for contributing with your insights on this. I think time has come for questions.
Absolutely, we've got lots of questions coming through on the platform. But before we do that, of course, it wouldn't be a MadFest event without us running a poll. So as if by magic, a poll should be appearing on people's screens round about now. So we have asked our audience, what holds you back from investing in personalization? So we've got about 30 seconds to answer the questions there. Is it about proving ROI? Is it getting your data house in order? Is it that the tech really isn't fit for purpose? Or is it issues of scalability? And looking at the live results coming in here, but people are saying personalization rocks. But what do our panel think that people are going to be saying here? Marie, where do you think people are going to be prioritizing?
I'm going to put my money bags across a few of them. I'd probably say confidence improving ROI. If we're investing early in personalization, is the data ready? Have you got the right tech to make it scalable? I think there are challenges for everybody that they might foresee.
And I can see the numbers of shifting here like election night in a very, very close election. What about you, Paloma? Where do you think people are going to be worried or excited about?
I think I would bet on either my data or tech isn't fit for purpose, because I think that's a very big challenge for a lot of companies.
And Zach, very quickly.
Yeah, equally, I was thinking data would be a big challenge for a lot of companies, depending on how structured it is internally.
And let's see what people actually think. That the poll should be going live now, we hope. And there we go.
This is a cliffhanger.
So, okay, so let's share those results. There we are. So it looks like personalization does indeed rock. So people are really excited about personalization and are backing it as a growth tool. Interesting to see, but scalability doesn't appear to be an issue. But I think lots of marketers out there looking to get their data house in order. We have got loads of questions coming through on the platform. We had a question from Alex Stansfield. I think this one's for Paloma. So what criteria were you personalizing against, and how are you specific about the level of personalization it achieved by percentage? So what were the actual metrics there?
So we're talking about the on-site experience.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes. I would say it's a matter of how much data we have about our customers, our users. So if we have a lot of data about them and they're returning customers and they've come a lot on the site, we would be able to to almost have 100% of the product personalized to that specific customer. But then again, there are a lot of users for which we have very limited data. They have maybe interacted with one product, two products, or something. So that's where we have to find this balance that works for all the users, and that's why we're trying to find that line, which landed at 65 for us. But I think it is very much about each company finding the right balance. Based on the type of customers they have and the data they have as well.
Fantastic, thanks Paloma. And Marie, we've got a question from Gemma, and you were very, very candid there about sort of times when personalization perhaps didn't shift the dial or didn't achieve the results that you were looking for. Do you think there are any sort of key characteristics that, in the campaigns that didn't actually work? things that people might want to look out for?
Yeah, I think there's a couple. I think in that specific example, we modeled personalization, so we tried to predict what someone would look like when we really didn't know enough about them. So I think it's about having the right level of confidence that the data you're using is relevant to that customer. If you are going to take that modeled approach, which is what we did in the case that didn't go so well for us. I think, if I'm completely honest, if you spend time listening to your customers and understanding what interests them about you and your brand and their relationship, and then you play that back for your personalization, I think that's always a really helpful start. One of the things we did when we launched our calendar-based usage review was we had a survey so customers could tell us which bits they liked and which bits they didn't, and then we continuously optimized to make the data we presented back to them relevant and engaging and useful for them. So I think listening to customers as well is another really important thing to do, and we're lucky we have lots of panels, and the FT readers are definitely vocal at telling us what they do and do like, so that helps us a lot actually, and telling us what's important to them as well.
Fantastic, thank you. We've got a question from Justin, and I think Justin may have got out the wrong side of bed this morning. So he's asking, is there any real evidence to show that customers really care about personalization? So will people just make a purchase decision based on a product, or is it really going to turn the dial? Zach, do you want to have a go at that one?
I think it makes a huge difference. I think from a B2C point of view, we've got the examples here. So I don't know if Justin arrived late or left early, but I think there was pretty compelling evidence on screen for both of those points. And certainly in a B2B side as well, nothing beats research-based prospecting. Segmented emails are good if you want to get quick results, but contacting people based on a compelling event or something you found out about them or their company is what will always perform best. And that's the same when it comes to sort of scale marketing, or personalized marketing at scale.
Fantastic, thanks, Zach. And a question here from Summer, a very timely one, perhaps one for Paloma, in fact. So how do you see the personalized space changing as we get back to normal? So we start normal patterns of consumption of media sort of start returning to normal levels.
I don't believe personalization is going anywhere as we return to normal. I think it's more and more relevant over time. Also, as technology evolves, we are able to be even more relevant and use data in a smarter way than before. So I don't believe that getting back to normal will change anything in that regard, at least in the online sphere.
Okay, and a question from Eric. What tech and innovation in the personalization space are you most excited about? Should we let Rasmus try this one?
Yeah, well, it's a big question. I think what's happening now is that sort of the whole paid media side has been dramatically impacted by tracking prevention algorithms and the death of third-party cookies and such. So what that means is that sort of the personalization now is very much run by your first-party data and your own media. So I think there's been a shift in terms of power from advertising over into owned media. So I would say it's an owned media first-party data first world that we're entering. Everything has become digitized. Everything has to be attributed. There's no such thing as anonymous data anymore, almost. So it's a lot about the known customers, turning unknown customers into known customers, making sure you get to know these people, and then leverage the data from these people also in the way that you are doing your paid media. So I think from technological perspective, the shift in favor of first-party data and owned media, and also the better integration of first-party data into your paid media effort. I think that's one of the most interesting things that I'm seeing at the moment.
Fantastic. Time for one final question from Martin. I think this one maybe is for Marie. So what tips do you have for personalisation in terms of new customer acquisition?
Oh, that's quite a broad question. I guess we talked a little bit about it, you know, depending, really understanding and placing some bets on the most important personalisation points that would appeal to that customer. Don't make assumptions, as we did in our early tests when we were trying to convert somebody, and maybe taking a slightly broader approach. So before you get too deep, before you really got to learn what that relationship that customer has with you and your brand and your products and services. But I think, you know, overall, just take it. Don't rush to get really super hyper relevant too soon. It's about slowly getting to learn your customers, maybe segmenting them into different types early on, and then try to get hyper personalized as you know more about them.
Fantastic. And we are way out of time. So with that, I'd like to thank all of our panelists, Marie, Zach, Paloma, Rasmus. It's been an absolutely fantastic discussion. And I think we've got a lot of openness in terms of stuff that's worked, stuff that hasn't worked, lots of insights and lots of data. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much also to our audience for all of your questions, for tuning in this afternoon. Don't forget to register for Mad Anywhere on the 10th and 11th of March. Loads of great speakers confirmed, and do check out the website. I'd like to thank Agillic for making this webcast possible. We are going to make this content available on demand, so if there's anything you wanted to revisit, do look out for our email after the event. So thank you very much all, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Cheers everyone. Thanks,
Bye,
Dan.
everybody.
Thank
Thanks
you.
all. Thank you.
Bye.